The driver of a minibus taxi allegedly involved in the accident that killed Stander has been questioned and released. Police say they're still investigating and can't say whether charges will be laid or not.
We are investigating a case of culpable homicide, as in all culpable homicide cases. We will be taking statements from witnesses, from the suspect himself, compiling a case docket, which will then be submitted to the public prosecutor for a decision. If the prosecutor decides that there is a prima facie case against the driver, they will then give us a decision to charge him. We will then charge him and place him before court.
Well, Stander has been hailed as a very hard worker who lived for the sport that he loved.
He made it all look too easy. He was an absolutely unbelievable cyclist. It didn't matter who was on his tail, he always found an extra gear in the last lap or two of any cross-country race or any event, and was not only accomplished in mountain biking, but was also an incredible road cyclist. This should be a massive wake-up call for the authorities and for the punitive measures that really should be implemented when somebody does hit a cyclist. My best understanding of European conditions is that if a motorist hits a cyclist, he's automatically guilty and automatically in deep trouble with the law. But in South Africa, that doesn't seem to be the case. And we really, really need to have a review of the situation in that respect.
Well, let's continue to get reaction from the world of sports. And a man who I know was very close to Burry Stander, had dealt with him on a number of times, interviewed him numerous times. Welcome to the show to Mike Finch, the editor of Runner's World magazine. Mike Finch, good morning to you. I wish you and I had better news to talk about this morning. What is your reaction as far as the death of Burry Stander is concerned?
Well, I think it's obviously a massive shock to the cycling community, but I think it's had reverberations not only around South African cycling and South Africa's sporting world, but I think around the world of cycling. He was a big name in cycling, you know, from a cross-country perspective, having won the Absa Cape Epic a few times, World Cup events, obviously Olympic Games this year. And I think it's a massive wake-up call, and I think the cycling community now hopefully will use this opportunity with such tragic news to perhaps get some action from the authorities, get government to do the right stuff and make some laws that do protect cyclists and the people that are out on the roads.
Well, Mike, as the editor of Runner's World, it's not just cyclists, of course, that are often sadly killed on the country roads, also many runners out there as well. Do you think government does enough to try and protect athletes that train on the country's roads?
Well, I think it's one of those things that, you know, both sides are responsible, and obviously it's very difficult to protect individual riders and cyclists out there. But down here in the Western Cape, I know there's a big push to legislate a law which keeps a 1.5 meter barrier around cyclists. So in other words, if a car passes within 1.5 meters and hits a cyclist, that driver becomes automatically responsible for the death of that runner or cyclist. And I think if that legislation goes through, hopefully there can be a push to make that legislation nationwide. So there is things that authorities can do, there is things that the government can do to ensure the safety of people that use the roads for recreational purposes. But it's not enough of a push. And I think we hear about cyclists and runners being killed, you know, on numerous occasions throughout the year. When somebody like Burry Stander dies in something like this, hopefully it raises the level of this and raises the importance of this, and hopefully his death will mean that some real action can take place.
Well, there certainly is. This is a backwards and forwards argument, Mike, I'm sure that you're well aware of, as who is to blame when it comes to using the roads when these accidents take place. Cyclists not obeying the laws, drivers not obeying the laws. The question I've put out today, perhaps you can help answer as well. Do you think the ability to drive with cyclists on the country's roads should be a compulsory part of getting your driver's license, and more of a focus on how to handle cyclists on the roads? Absolutely.
I think there's two issues at stake when it comes to, you know, just normal drivers on the road and also those using public transport. And I think it's a brilliant idea to consider the fact that cyclists do use the road, especially in a country where cycling is becoming more and more common, not just as a recreational activity, but something that people use to commute into work every day, particularly in Cape Town. That is becoming a massive trend. And I think if people become aware of cyclists more and more, hopefully we'll see less tragic accidents like this. But I agree, it is a fantastic idea. Whether that can be legislated is obviously a different story, but you know, it is something that can be done. And you know, I think that awareness. You know, also you think about public transport. You know, a normal taxi driver can have a Code 08 license and still be driving people around and being responsible for them. And I think there needs to be an elevation of the status of the people using public transport and the drivers that drive them, to ensure that they have higher qualifications to be driving on our roads.
Mike, we'll leave it there for the moment. Thank you, as always, your time to talk to us. Mike Finch, editor of Runner's World magazine, also an avid cyclist himself, knew Burry Stander incredibly well, having interviewed him a few times. We'll continue to get more reaction to the death of Burry Stander later in the morning. It's part of The Question. I'll bring that to you a little bit later.